turn down the music and everyone gets quiet. First of all, thank you all for coming here, and thanks to everybody who's observing this on the webcast as well. This is a really exciting first-time event for Merck, and I hope also for the 15 companies that are here today. My name is Kimberly Park, and I am your unofficial host. You have two hosts today, Sean and Steve, but I really wanted to thank the presenters. I understand you've done about 15 presentations in the last 10 days. I understand the consumption of caffeine has gone up about tenfold. People are refilling their to-go cups, so we expect a highly energized audience. But the part that's really exciting to me is bringing this external perspective into Merck. Now, you might think that that's sort of commonplace, but we tend to get pretty focused internally. And the value to us of having all of you join us is really to start to think differently about what are the needs in the healthcare environment, how are you thinking about addressing those needs, and then really getting from you the insights around that opportunity. And the range of companies that are here, I think, will really inspire in us some different thinking than where we traditionally go. So I think there's a company here that's been here or been around for about 38 days. And that gentleman right there, he's 38 days old. There's a company here that's named after a Sesame Street character, Kermit. There he is right over there. And we have companies that are actually generating revenue. So these are some companies that have actually managed to sell their services or solutions. For all of those that are generating revenue, can you raise your hands? That is outstanding. Outstanding. So the first piece is around perspective, really helping us with that external view, helping us push our thinking. So it's not just about the pharmaceutical product, but the entire healthcare environment. The second piece is around performance, and that's the reason I asked about revenue. For the Merck people in the audience, we've just completed our objectives. They were all done by March 31st. But performance for a startup is very different. It's all about achieving a milestone or a deliverable so that you actually stay around, that you survive to that next milestone or deliverable. So that intensity around those performance metrics is something that we don't really experience on a day-to-day basis. And some of that intensity is what I'd like to see us also bring in to our organization. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is really partnership. And there's a two-way partnership here today. One is you're sharing with us your insights and learning, but you're also asking us, what can we learn from you? And on the Merck side, there is an ask to each of you. For companies that you see that you think you can learn from or potentially help or guide, they're looking for mentors. And the mentorship can be casual or it can be formal, but the majority of companies here would like to figure out how can they learn faster so they can deliver better results more quickly and actually thrive and maybe someday be traded on Wall Street or maybe be bought out by another larger company, whatever their exit strategy might be. So I'm really excited from a perspective point of view, from a performance point of view, and from a partnership point of view to welcome the 15 companies that are here today under the auspices of Dreamit. And we have one of the leads from Dreamit here, Steve, and our host, Sean, and I'm excited to turn over to them. Fasten your seatbelts. Let's get ready for a real ride. Thank you.
And I think, oh, good, I'm live. How about that? It's great. On behalf of Dreamit, I'd like to thank you for coming. My name is Steve Barsh. I'm Chief Innovation Officer from Dreamit, and I'm out of Dreamit's hub in Philadelphia, which is our main headquarters. We also have a location in New York City. We really appreciate you coming today. Just a bit about Dreamit so you understand who we are. We're a venture acceleration company. We've been doing this for since 2008. We started doing venture healthcare acceleration, specifically in the healthcare vertical, about 4 years ago. We've done it largely in partnership with Penn Medicine and Independence Blue Cross. We've also done it with Johns Hopkins and a couple CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We love building early stage companies. We love health. It's an important sector. It's an interesting sector because we can have huge impact to people's lives. And I would think like Merck, you're at a little bigger scale. If we can have a huge impact to people's lives and humanity, there should be a financial return for everyone in the end, but it starts with patients, right? It starts with human beings. Just a preview on these companies, approximately 300 companies applied to get into this cohort of Dreamit. It's very competitive to get in. 15 got in. So about a 5% acceptance rate. They applied from 36 countries around the world. So this is a very curated list of companies. They're in a 4-month journey with us where we're accelerating them. Some of them are brand new. Some of these are post-seed, pre-Series A companies. We're accelerating them over that span. They spend 4 months in a program. It starts with immersions like this. It goes all the way through an investor roadshow. So that's a little bit about us. Like Kim had said, Most of these companies will have an ask for you. It's not just mentoring. Some of these will have solutions specifically that Merck could find interesting or distribution channels. Another thing that's important afterwards, there's going to be some networking afterwards. If people can stay around, we'd appreciate it. During that networking, I can tell you something that we tell Dreamit companies that's very important. You can't possibly hurt their feelings. If you think that what they're doing is wrong or they're missing a blind spot, the most important thing you can tell them is that fact. We tell entrepreneurs all the time, the most dangerous thing that these guys can get is a false positive, right? So you give them criticism, give them feedback, and give them help. I think you'll like what you see. Hopefully, it'll be a very wide variety. I appreciate you having us. I'm going to turn it over to Sean. Right? Thank you, Sean.
So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kim. So I'm going to be your Merck host this evening, Sean Hughes, or this afternoon, this morning, depending where you're on the webcast. I will be your logistics keeper, so I do have a few notes just to keep me on track. First of all, thank you to everyone here in the room. As I said, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mike and Mo from Dreamit and the entire Dreamit class cohort this year. We appreciate you being here for all the reasons we've expressed already. Thank you to everyone in the room from both Merck and as well, again, from Dreamit for being here in person. It's important to help with the networking and the connections that we'll aspire to connect you guys with post-meeting. And also, thank you to everyone on the webcast. So I know we have a lot of people on the webcast, so thank you for tuning in. And in particular, I needed to do a shout out to the MSD UK team, as well as our partners at Wayra and Velocity Health. So what some of you may not know is we've partnered with a digital health accelerator in the heart of London. We have 4 classes that we're incubating, or 4 companies, sorry, that we are incubating in the digital health space. But Wayra incubates about the same size of class that you have, and they're on the line this afternoon. So they are fast approaching Friday happy hour in the heart of London. So we appreciate them being on the line and holding on to their pre-pub events to be with us today. So as I said, my role is sort of your host and your timekeeper. We're actually good on time, which is great. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Steve. And what we have today is we have 14 companies here who will each provide 90-second pitches, followed by Q&A from our sharks who are here in the front row. There'll be a total of 5 minutes per company. And also, we have, as I said, we have 5 minutes. We're going to try to keep the teams here on track. I believe Steve and the Dreamit team will give you kind of your 90-second signal. But at 5 minutes, we do have a ticking clock. And as well, you'll have a timer that you as presenters can see in the back of the room. So we're going to try to keep us at the 5-minute level. Our online webcast participants, unfortunately, you're view only, so we appreciate you being on the line, but that doesn't mean you can't participate post-event. So please reach out to the emails we have posted here. You can reach out to myself at any time for questions, follow-up, or interest with either Dreamit or any of the individual companies or entrepreneurs that you're going to meet this morning. And lastly, for the participants in the room, when we get to the 5 minutes of Q&A, if you have a pressing question, please feel free to stand at the mic, and it will be up to the judges and their purview if they wish to give you the opportunity to ask your question. So our sharks are in charge of the Q&A and the time, but time permitting, you'll be able to ask your question. And so lastly, unlike the TV show Shark Tank, our sharks aren't here to make investments. I think, as Steve was saying, they're really here to challenge the pitches, to help improve what you're working on, to give insightful questions and feedback. So we're not really here to make an investment at this point. And as people have asked, we do have connections in this world, and we're happy to make those connections. Today's objective from Steve is really to probe and to help you guys clarify your pitches. Does that make sense? So with that, we have our judges. So I'd like to introduce our judges. First, we have Mr. Jacob Zimlichman, Executive Director, GHH Strategy and Planning, and his responsibilities include providing strategic planning and portfolio management across the divisions of Merck. So for you guys, keep that in mind. Previously, he's held roles in business intelligence, marketing, business development, and new products planning. Jacob holds his BA degree in economics from Ben Gurion University. in Israel and an MBA with dual concentrations in marketing and finance from Fordham University in New York. Next, we have Paul Edwards. Paul Edwards is the Managing Director for Dreamit Health Solutions, and his current role includes leading all facets of this business. So what's interesting is Paul's leading what I would call an internal startup. So he's almost a peer of yours with the backing of Merck. So you guys can talk that one out later. But I think Paul brings a great perspective as well to the meeting. Previously, Paul has held several leadership positions, including Global Brand Leader, Business Operations Director, Franchise Leader, and European Marketing Director. So Paul holds an MBA from Oxford Brookes University in the United Kingdom. So you're seeing global, broad perspective to support you guys with some networking afterwards. Next up, we have Arnab Chatterjee, is Director of Data Science and Insights Group at Merck, which is part of CORE, which is within MRL. For our guests, MRL is Merck Research Laboratory, so that's our research division at Merck, which may be of interest for you. Additionally, Arnab serves as lecturer in the Department of Policy, Analysis, and Management at Cornell University, and is a teaching associate in the Department of Healthcare Policy at Harvard Medical School. At Merck, he's working to scope and drive emerging business opportunities through the development of real-world data and technology partnerships. May be interesting to some of you. He holds a graduate degree in health administration, public administration from Cornell, and received his undergraduate from the University of Michigan. I think that's the big house, right? Being a Canadian, I may not be quite accurate. Okay. And last but not least, we have Nima Bakami, PhD, MSc, is Director of Strategic Planning in the U.S. Market Customer Alliance and Innovation Group. In this role, he works on identifying and integrating solutions for priority therapeutic areas. And also, as a National Institute of Health Fellow, Nima trained in chronic disease management at Brigham and Women's Hospital, Division of General Internal Medicine in Boston, and received his degree in biomedical informatics from Harvard Medical School. So these are your sharks, and they will be in charge of keeping you on track, introducing the next people for the questions. And with that, we are good for time, and I think we are going to move forward. We've already done this. And we're going to move forward now with calling out our first startup, our first Dreamit Health class. Cue the music. And we have DNA Simple, I believe.
All right. Quite a great intro. Hi, my name is Olivier, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of DNA Simple. We are an online DNA bank. We allow patients to contribute to scientific studies and provide genetic researchers with the samples they need for half the cost of creating and managing their own DNA bank. The way we work is that we have people sign up in our online database, and so we have their de-identified clinical information, and we match them with a researcher study. Only after a match, we send them a donor a saliva collection kit with a prepaid stamp, which they return to us with their saliva sample, and after which we will give the sample to the researcher who requested it. We actually bypassed a very essential step that makes DNA banks very difficult and expensive to have. We don't have to have and maintain a large facility to store the samples. We eliminate paperwork between researchers and donors, and most importantly, we're not limited geographically in terms of the samples we can recruit. We are already working in just 2 months with 3 genetic testing companies, providing them samples for over 20 diseases, and the total number of requests for samples has doubled ever since. We recruit our donors primarily through social media and targeting and establishing partnership with disease support groups. Our donors contribute to scientific research, and we compensate them with $50 every time they provide a sample. As a summary, with DNA Simple, researchers can now have access to the samples they're looking for, independent of location, cheaper and faster than the status quo. That's 90 seconds.
I'd request you use the mics for our guests on the webcast. Thank you.
I was just a little confused. So where do you store the samples?
That's the key. We don't store the samples. We actually have the online database with the clinical information de-identified. Only when we determine that a patient will fit in a specific study and that researcher will need that sample, at that time we go ahead and ship them a saliva collection kit to get the sample. That way we avoid the bottleneck of having to have a large facility that needs to be that keeps growing over years, needing a staff to take care of it.
So one question I would have is there an assumed trust that the match is correct, which it relies on the patient basically self-diagnosing and reporting what they have, or?
Correct. So we use the exact same health questionnaire that's used in the hospital. So so one question that's related to that we get a lot is that how do you know somebody doesn't just go and say, I have cancer, just to get the $50? So we don't actually give the money when you sign up. So you sign up in the database, we don't know exactly what studies, what are they looking for. So you sign up, and only when we need it, then we send you a notification saying your sample is needed for X study, and at that point we get it. So there's no way for you to sign up and know exactly what we're looking for at the time and when we would need it. Mm-hmm. And we, just for some studies, actually would need a little more than just the standard questionnaire that's offered in institutions. We actually have partnered with another company called Dreamit Health, and what they do is that they combine all the clinical information of a person from all their doctor's visits, and with their consent, we partner with them to get that information to the researchers as well, if they need it. Mm-hmm. Most studies have not needed it so far.
So what are your thoughts about some competitors in the space, like the Human Longevities and organizations that are trying to tie some clinical research as well as this biobank collecting effort, where they're working directly with smaller clinics or with larger hospitals to gather samples at an accelerated rate?
Right. Yes. So, and this is the way we've done it forever, right? So we have one institution trying to collaborate with 5 local clinics around town. So again, you run into the problem of you're only going to get the samples of the people who come to those clinics. So if you partner with 5 clinics that are in the Philadelphia area, you're going to get patients from the Philadelphia area. If you're looking for patients, there might be 100 patients in Minnesota and 100 in Texas and other ones. You're never going to be able to connect with them unless you then establish a connection with those hospitals. So what we provide is the ability to get the samples you're looking for independent of location, like I said. So the fact that we are not based on having people come in and physically consent them, the way everyone does it now, allows us to have a much, much larger pool and be able to get the samples faster.
So, yeah, I think it's on.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Olivia, great stuff. There's a few other companies working around the same problem, and it's fantastic. It's the way of the future. And it's great that you're working with Dreamit Health. But to Arnab's question, for example, in Boston, at Partners Healthcare too, they're building a biobank that they're sequencing every patient that walks through the door, regardless of if they want to or not. Obviously with consent, but as a general practice, and as well as their employees. When I was an employee there, they sent out an email. Your employee here, come get sequenced. I get what you're saying, that you provide sort of a broader geography reach, et cetera, et cetera. Is there opportunities in the space for sort of an aggregator, like the airline ticket companies, that an investigator can go to an aggregator site, see what you have access to, but still have access to what's at Partners Healthcare or some of the other places that Arnab mentioned? Is there a partnership model for you?
Yeah, well.
Okay, tell me later.
Yes. We can talk about it after. Yeah, so right. So in terms of partnering with other companies like that, we've not done that yet. I mean, we're less than a year old now. But if I understand your question correctly, is that we could, for example, go to one of the flight company and say, everyone who goes through there, could you possibly check out DNA Simple? Is that what you mean?
Well, sorry. The samples, the patients are going to be distributed all over the place, right? They're going to have some of the data, you're going to have some of the data, et cetera. But is there a way to make it easier that an investigator, for example, searches once? We can follow up offline.
Yeah, we could, yes. We'll do that for a second. Yeah.
On your way off the stage, what's your background that you're doing this?
Yes, so I'm an MD PhD student, getting a PhD in biochemistry and molecular genetics. So we have 3 co-founders. The second co-founder is also an MD PhD, but a bioinformatician and computational geneticist. And our third is an artificial intelligence and algorithm expert.
All right, next is MedStack.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Balaji Gopalan. I represent a Toronto, Canada-based startup called MedStack. The opportunity for digital applications to transform outpatient care is huge. Unfortunately, for developers to participate in this opportunity, the existing tools they use to build applications are inadequate. What ends up happening is that the average developer could spend upwards of a year and close to $200,000 just to achieve HIPAA compliance. On top of that, if they also want to integrate their data with the institution's back-end systems, that's even more complicated. MedStack is a platform that cuts this effort down in time and cost to less than a third. With a monthly subscription to our platform, our early customers are building solutions such as an application that manages adherence to exercises for children with behavioral disorders. As well as we have a customer who's building a platform that predicts burnout and injury of athletes and shares that data with sports medicine professionals. And we have somebody building a wearable device that predicts stress markers and shares these warnings with employers and insurance providers. Unlike our competitors, we provide everything required for the building of a software ecosystem. We've been in this space a long time. My co-founder, Simon, works with me to build this platform. Are we out of time? All right. I'm happy to take any questions.
Where do you store the data that comes from all the apps? So it's HIPAA compliance.
Yes.
So where do you store it?
Yeah. So we have basically our offering is a layer atop of standardized cloud services. So we have an infrastructure in every country they operate. Right now it's Canada and the U.S. And so
It's a cloud?
It's a cloud. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We have the ability to run this in sort of a cloud service as you might expect. We can also run it in particular instances with an institution themselves, as necessary.
If you had multiple of these applications deployed at a customer, do you have a way of being able to track a customer that moves from app to app? Do you provide that to your users?
Yeah, I mean, because one of the elements of our platform is we standardize the way that the data is delivered across all of the applications. We're using industry standards like FHIR and Apple Health Kit. That allows us to pull insights across applications at the individual customer's level.
Thank you.
So are you trying to be the app store or the app enablement organization?
That was the next 5 seconds of what I was going to say.
Okay.
Our end goal of what we're after is a marketplace of applications that stitches together everybody in the industry. The patient, the provider, the institution, the regulator, the developer, the solution provider such as yourselves, and would allow the prescription of applications, very much like we prescribe medication and prescribe devices as authorized by the institution and tied back to the payer system.
So have you heard of SMART, the partners effort? How are you guys, is there similarity, overlap? Is there difference between what they're trying to do?
So with MedStack, what we're trying to do is build everything that the developer would need from the perspective of building the application, the standardized data model that enables these connections into these different systems, and the marketplace itself. There are a few other marketplace initiatives. We've been looking at those. They're all early days, but we think one of the challenges they face is actually getting the applications into the marketplace because they don't have this end-to-end integration.
Just a quick question. Maybe you could just speak briefly on your business model in terms of how you actually make the money and so.
Yeah, it's a monthly subscription. Yeah. So we modeled it after developer tools that software makers are making already. It's a monthly subscription that tiers per usage. On top of that, we have a little bit of a consulting service for integration, and we bring in experts for the pieces outside our platform, such as the preparation of their compliance and documentation through a partner network.
And you generate revenue today, or?
Yes, we do. We have a few paying customers today, including a medical institution based in Toronto.
What's the uptake looking like? Is it one institution, or do you have more?
It's one. We're early days yet, but it's pretty exciting because that's a representative of the kind of model that I think is going to be the representation of our business in the future, which is bring a healthcare professional and our network of partners together to build everything that they need.
And who's the team?
So the team is, there's two of us here, and we're supported by a technical team back in Toronto that has experience building healthcare applications. Thank you.
Welcome to the stage, Barrington.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning. Every year in the United States, we spend $33 billion on over 500,000 NICU, that is neonatal ICU, or premature babies. Globally, there are 15 million such babies. Proven evidence-based reports have shown you can save $6 billion of that cost by just providing a continuous stream of breast milk to those babies. The problem is the moms are away from the NICU, so they need to pump breast milk in bottles, bring them over to the nursing station. And the management of pumped breast milk at the NICU is horribly broken. And whether Lactolog is an automation of pumped breast milk management at the NICU, and we ensure that there are zero manual entries in the system. What it does, it brings down the nursing time spent on bartending the bottles. For 16 bottles that now using 45 minutes, we bring it down to 45 seconds. However, there is another problem. Just the pumping itself is a very unnatural act, correct? Lactation, however, is very natural because you see the baby crying. So we've built a media-rich sharing platform and a notification platform within our system wherein the nurses and the mothers get connected. Moms can now see their babies, can now hear their babies crying, which acts as a stimuli for the moms to lactate more. If they're lactating more, that is more milk in the NICU, and NICU babies go home sooner. It lets the lactation experts view what is going on with the moms and if counseling is required, and we run machine learning analytics on the production and the consumption patterns, and insights for doctors are generated. Thank you. Questions, please.
So I'll start by asking, what is the current, what are we replacing here, or is this an added cost for the hospital? Because they don't like added costs, right? So
we are actually saving a lot of cost. We are saving 6.5 full-time employees at an average size NICU. That is $400,000 for the hospital. We can save up to $6 billion for the payers. And in our current costing model, we'll actually be charging $3 billion. If we get to all the 500,000 babies in US, we'll charge $3 billion and save $3 billion. How we do it is, so the current systems are manual. They are actually using Motorola recorders. They scan the barcode that is given to the mom. We are replacing that. We are giving QR codes because that is one less touch point of error. The recording gets automated. Right now they need to tap, tap, tap because they are resistive touches, not beautiful touches that we have on our iPhones. They need to tap, tap, tap for 16 bottles, 45 minutes. We make zero manual entries. That takes it down to 45 seconds for 16 bottles.
Just to follow up on that, so did you actually prove to specific hospitals that this actually works and reduces cost?
We heard from a set of nurses and lactation experts. We built it over 48 hours during PenApps. It's the world's largest collegiate hackathon. We came second. It was judged second by Kevin Haley, the managing partner for Y Combinator. And we're actually building the new system now, and we're going live in fall 2016.
So you mentioned sort of like outcomes in terms of financial outcomes for the hospital, right? Where? Have you published that? Have you got data on that?
Thank you. Fantastic question. It is all evidence-based reports currently available, and how they did it. It was an 8-month study done in Shanghai. They just gave one incentive to the mom. That was to note down how much she has lactated and how much milk she has produced. Just that one intrinsic behavior change led to 759% increase of milk flow in the NICU. And now we are doing so much more than just giving her a journal entry. We are actually giving her the stimuli which a real mom feels. It is the intrinsic behavior change, the benefit of motherhood, which a NICU mom cannot basically feel.
But the time workflow, it's the same in the US as it is in other markets? I'm just interested because the system is different, right?
The system is different, but are you talking about the total cost saving?
Yes, you talked about headcount specifically.
Oh, so we calculated the costs for US, but we took the amount, the number of days saved from the Shanghai model. So we did a we just crossed it over to US.
You haven't proven it in the US market yet.
And that is our aim, that once we go live with the beta, we run a 4-month evidence-based model, and at the end of 4 months, we report our numbers.
Okay, so your prototype or your test market was China in one market, in one hospital.
It wasn't our test. We are just reporting evidence-based reports right now.
Okay.
What is the media-rich sharing platform you mentioned?
So nurses will be able to click photos of babies and record videos and share it back to the moms. We control when those get delivered to the moms. So moms need to pump 8 to 10 times a day to generate 12 to 16 bottles. It is about providing that stimuli at the right time. So 15 minutes before we know she has to pump, because she's also using our app, we control when that goes in, and moms then know. So moms are shown the photo right at the moment when she has to lactate. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Next on stage is Kermit.
U.S. hospitals spend $74 billion a year on implantable medical devices. 30% of that number is roughly $22 billion. This is the amount of money that hospitals can recover directly to their bottom line, dollar for dollar. Good morning. My name is Jason Smith. I'm the COO and co-founder of Kermit. And today I'm going to show you how we're already solving this problem. Kermit is an analytic platform that equips hospital executives, surgeons, and supply chain staff with real-time data on the implantable medical device transactions such as total knees and total hips. With one collaborative tool, Kermit can perform audit and compliance on the vendor-supplied invoices and reveal cost savings opportunities by taking the case-level data and turning it into actionable analytics. We do this through automation as well as the expertise of former medical device reps. We have 2 hospitals that saved over $10 million by using our platform. And so what's the value for Merck? Well, you guys sell to thousands of hospitals every day and probably know at least 2 executives in each one of those hospitals. If we can save them millions of dollars in waste and overspend, that's more money in the budget for you, as well as added value for the next time that you're at the negotiation table. We'd love to network with you to try to get access to these executives. Thank you.
So how many prototypes have you done? I mean, to
So
prove that
we're
data?
live in 3 hospitals right now.
And what have you saved them so far?
So far we've saved them over $15 million.
And do you share in that? I mean, how do you?
No, it's a subscription.
Why?
Well, originally, yeah. So originally we started as consultants, and we did do a risk model, pay for performance. But for investors and for scalability, we converted to a SaaS model for annual recurring revenue.
So I'm still not sure I'm clear on the hospital, the customer in the hospital, because you mentioned, this could help different audiences, right?
Correct.
So who are you specifically targeting? How are you actually getting, the business at the end?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's not one person in the hospital that really has the authority to purchase the product. So we start at the executive level to have a champion to kind of shepherd us through the process. But then ultimately we have to go to materials management or somebody on the clinical side to validate what we can do with the product. It's also really nice to have a champion surgeon to push us through the process as well.
Can you give me an example of how you are hot-spotting fraud and what the analytics behind that look like? Is it trend analysis? Are you, what type of data are you analyzing? And then ultimately, how are you coming up with the model to say that there is something that looks fishy here?
Yeah, so we actually take the vendor supplied billing sheet, the invoice, and we enter it into our system. We do real-time audit and compliance on that, so we're saving them money on the audit and compliance piece. We can show them back dashboard reports on the type of issues that the vendors are having. But we also, because we came from the medical device world, we have a unique way of classifying all these procedures and products and then have the ability to show it back to all the different parties so that you can see the variances of products and then be able to price level. But then you also have the ability, because we're ex-medical device reps, we can see anomalies with these cases as they're flowing through the system, and we can give deal cards back to the hospitals for savings opportunities. And so a lot of times those savings opportunities could be huge, millions of dollars in some of these anomalies.
Have you guys thought about being predictive, where you can look at different types of models to say that for this hip replacement, we know what the fraudulent rate is, and this is a doctor that's more likely to commit fraud? Or
Sure. I mean, that's all the kind of visibility piece that we're providing. We're also starting to work with some patient-reported outcome companies. So now we can start seeing where the cost and utilization is from our tool, and then match that up with how the patient's actually doing. So how far can we drive down cost, or who is the lowest provider that has the best outcomes, and then we can start shifting volume and business or clinical co-management practices towards that spectrum of care.
So you mentioned real-time and audit and feedback in the same sentence. I'm just trying to work out how that works, because audit and feedback is generally after.
Yes. So
how can that be
currently
real-time?
how it happens now is they're taking the information, they enter it into their ERP information, and then if there's something that happens on the billing sheet, they typically don't find out until weeks or months down the road. What we're doing is, as soon as the case is over, we're entering that into our system. We have a 2-hour turnaround time, so that can get red flagged. All the analytics are being classified at that point, so then that automatically gets fed back into our dashboards.
Are you part of the EMR? Or?
We're not. We're cloud-based, and so it's not in high-intensity IT implementation.
Who's the user?
What's that?
Who's the user in the hospital? Who's the user?
Yeah, so the user is the executive with bundle payments.
Which executive?
The C-level. Any of the C-level executives now starting to look at reform.
CFOs?
CFOs,
okay.
VPs of supply chains,
okay.
The surgeons. Now they don't really know what these items cost, so now they have the visibility piece of, and I'm getting cut off here, but we can definitely, I can go on forever, but well, I'll touch base with you afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, please welcome Somatics.
Hi, good morning. My name is Eran. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Somatics. We do data. We do basically data analytics, behavioral modification software platform for data analytics, using data that is being derived from smartwatches and wristbands, wearables. So we all know the Merck manuals for smoking cessation and the data that it contains. So 17% of Americans are trying to, of smoker Americans, 20% of them, of the population, are trying to stop smoking. 17% would like to stop smoking. 50% try, but only 1 of 10 manage to get to permanent smoking cessation. So we can change it completely. The way that we do it is that we take raw data from any type of a wearable or basically smartwatch or wristband, and then we can tell in real time what's the hand-to-mouth gesture that a person is doing. We can tell whether a person is eating, drinking, smoking, shaving, taking a pill, whatever that person is doing, we can tell in real time. Once we know that a person is smoking, we start applying models that are based on CBT and cognitive behavioral therapy. We're working with a few professors in which we apply 4 different types of incentives: financial, social, emotional, and irrational. We measure the response of the user over time, basically to the different type of incentives that are being applied, and then we start changing the dosages of the incentives in order to get to a higher efficacy of the program that was prescribed by the physician or by the clinician.
So quick question. Interesting. I'd like to hear more about defining the problem. So how many do you know of the patients actually have the challenge of not succeeding with smoking cessation because of reasons that can be addressed with this type of solution?
The main problem with smoking cessation globally is basically the compliance of patients with the treatment that are being prescribed. That's usually where they fail. This is what we change, because what we do is an enterprise-based system in which basically we provide the physician with a remote monitoring tool in which he can see what is happening continuously with the patient with respect to his behavior, with respect to the complying with the treatment and adhering to it. Then to the clinic, to the provider, we provide that measurement of the efficacy of the 2 different programs that they have.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is there's probably a lot of reasons for why patients don't comply, and what I'm getting at is maybe better understanding of, you know, how many of the patients actually would be the, you know, benefit from this, what characterizes them, etc. So, I mean, I know there's probably other questions, but something to think about as a future for pitches.
Okay.
Aaron, you mentioned that you use the tracker to figure out, I assume, taking the box out of their pocket or reaching for a cigarette to put in their mouth. Is that?
No, the actual smoking gesture.
So that
we
one.
recognize every hand-to-mouth gesture.
So at that point, they've started smoking. When are you introducing, when is that point that you're sort of trying to...
On the second puff. An average cigarette is between 8 to 12 puffs. On the second puff, we know that that's a smoking gesture.
Okay.
And then we initiate the intervention, basically.
And that's on a phone, or they get buzzed on their wrist?
Yes, basically on their smartphone, the application.
And the idea would be that they would put out the cigarette after the second puff? Or is it for the next time they'll be smoking?
Well, the idea is that basically they will reduce their smoking volume. There is a mechanism in which they, in many cases, they turn off the cigarette because of some of the incentives that we provide. But in most cases, the intention is to reduce the overall smoking volume because of that awareness or mindfulness that they get from seeing their data continuously.
Okay, that's good. So I haven't recently looked at this issue of smoking cessation. I think this is one of 5 or 6 things that could work and will make a dent in the large issue. How do you think about sort of giving this as a menu item for either the consumer or the provider to be able to select, for you, this thing would be right, wear a wearable, get these alerts, versus somebody else needs a nicotine patch, somebody needs something else, maybe e-cigarettes. Have you given some of that thought?
Yes, the application basically is available for free both on Apple and Google. The data analytics that we monetize basically is for the enterprise. So the enterprise, like health insurance companies and clinics that we work with, they use many different types of smoking cessation. Basically, we are complementary to it. We provide the monitoring and we provide the adherence of the users to the different types, so they will know what is working better.
So that was my question quickly. So what's the model? Who pays? Who pays you?
We work with corporate employers, health insurance companies, and clinics. They pay basically either per success or per active user per month.
Okay.
Welcome to the stage, Inquisit Health.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ashwin Patel, and I serve as Chief Medical Officer of Inquisit Health. We focus on helping patients with poorly controlled chronic diseases like diabetes, asthma, HIV. We do this through one-on-one mentoring with the health coach, who is similar to the patient in terms of speaking the same language. They have the same ethnic background, and most importantly, they're someone who lives with the same disease successfully. We've demonstrated how this type of one-on-one mentoring is very successful in delivering knowledge, driving behavior change, and making measurable improvements in health outcomes. Our team has led randomized clinical trials. In diabetes, for example, we've shown how how peer mentoring results in over a point reduction in hemoglobin A1C, which translates to almost a 40% reduction in long-term complications. For pediatric asthma, we've shown how parent mentoring results in over a 30% reduction in asthma-related pediatric hospitalizations. What we're doing is taking this evidence base and creating scalable clinical programs. We work with health partners who identify these patients for us. We manage the rest. So we reach out to these patients. We match them with a peer mentor that we have trained and recruited who is similar demographically and clinically. Our experts create a personalized program for these patients, and our mentors help these patients go through these programs successfully. So we come to clients like health plans, health systems, with both the technology and the workforce of peer mentors. We were founded in 2012. We have now 120 plus peer mentors. We are working with some great clients, and we're looking to Merck, as you're looking about value-added service going beyond the pill. We think that this type of approach can be very effective in driving healthcare outcomes.
Really interesting. I think one of the questions I have two, or actually a few more, but one of them is around selection of the mentors and the criteria. What do you look at?
So it depends on the disease. So we're looking for someone who has the disease themselves. So for diabetes, for example, we're looking with someone who has type 2 diabetes, who has it well controlled, and then they go through our training program, which encompasses them learning about diabetes, them learning about coaching skills. We evaluate them through written exams as well as a number of standardized patient activities, in addition to ongoing training and support.
Yeah, which actually perfect segue to my second question, which is, do you target one specific disease area, or are you looking at multiple comorbidity patients? And the reason I ask is because when you're going after customers, whether it's within hospitals or payers, are you looking at patients with multiple chronic conditions? Like, how do you pitch them if you have a health coach who is trained just to look at diabetes? Or
yeah, so this sits on top of their existing disease management programs in many cases, or case management. So it is disease specific. Right now, working with diabetes, asthma, and HIV, and we're adding additional clinical programs. And so that's a key part of our overall strategy, and really drive engagement and to focus and add value where in their existing programs they're not able to provide that 3 to 6 month of contact that we provide through our peer coaches. And so that's where we really come in as a value-added additional service that is necessary to help these patients make these behavior changes that are sustainable.
How many patients does each peer coach manage?
Yeah, so the coaches are helping patients go through a curriculum that is designed by our experts, our certified diabetes educators or certified asthma educators. And so they are really playing a supportive role. So an average is about 10, but it really varies based on the needs of the patient as well as the availability of the mentor.
How do you pay them? How do you pay the coach? Is it they're employees of yours, or they're contractors of yours?
So they're all independent contractors of ours, and they're paid based on the activity that they're conducting on our platform, which monitors all the interactions, helps support those, and really tracks their engagement activity.
Okay. So you talked about outcomes. You have published outcomes. You have shown the value of peer-to-peer.
We have. So our work came out of clinical trials that were done at UCSF, University of Pennsylvania, University of Michigan, and so we really built the technology to create these programs into scalable technologies that can be integrated into health systems. And so we are ourselves connecting two NIH-funded randomized clinical trials at this moment, but we're also showing those same results, and we were able to replicate those results with our clinical partners in the Bronx, for example. We're able to show that reduction in hemoglobin A1C even beyond what was shown in the clinical trials.
Ashwin, peer-to-peer really works, and we did some work in my past role with Bodenheimer at UCSF around this. One of the things that we're having a lot of difficulty with, even though this was working, is integrating it back into the things that they were doing in the clinic. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so we play a role in terms of our experts, our CDEs and certified educators are the ones that are helping bridge that gap between the clinic and the programs that we're running. And then we, from a tech perspective, feed back into the healthcare system to provide. So they're linked to the provider or the payer in terms of what the challenges are, and then we provide. Exactly.
Thank you, Ashwin.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Prevnos.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Prevnos. So we are actually a consumables company. We make fish probes for cancer diagnostics, for stratification of disease, identifying what stage the cancer is in, what type of cancer, and most importantly, the companion diagnostics side. We're able to tell what type of targeted therapy is utilized just by looking at these fish probes. Our long-term goal is to work with circulating tumor cells. We want to look more downstream for fish applications. There's not a lot of people working in this space in particular. We came out with a technology called hybrid fusion fish that reduces the current cost of traditional models of fish by 50%, increases the efficiency by 90% with respect to analysis and the consumable reagents. And that's our test. We're looking at Merck for companion diagnostics opportunities. We know that you've done some work with Keytruda and the IHC companion diagnostic for PDL and PDL1. We want to take that model and do the same thing with respect to fish tests in multiple cancer markets. Yeah.
Very good. Thanks. Obviously, these kind of things are in my mind, very exciting.
Yes.
You are attaching to a protein?
No. So fish probes, fish stands for fluorescence in situ hybridization, and they're DNA. They're DNA backbones, yes.
Okay.
So they localize only to the nucleus of the cell in the interphase format. Mm-hmm.
And how quickly can you do that? Is it a bedside technology?
It's so we do it. The hybrid fusion fish is under 24 hours. The current turnaround times in labs like Quest, it's about 7 to 14 days.
Okay.
But we're not sure if that's an issue of hybridization or if that's a process protocol issue. So that's completely separate. But our tests can yield a result in 24 hours.
And it's identification, right?
Identification of genes. So everyone has 2 copies. If it's more than 2, it's amplification. If it's less than 2, it's deletion. And that's how you stratify using the colored dots. We're supposed to be a colored dots image, but
and just one last question. So you have working prototypes?
So we have RUO reagents, and we have back orders for 152 labs or provisional POs. These are CLIA labs. We're looking to get into the more high volume labs like Quest and
510K.
So only for the large volume tests. It's no, none of our tests are 510K. No.
Why?
We're still in the infancy stage of the company. We started about 6 months ago, emerged publicly. We were in stealth mode, and just 2 months ago, we publicly released a lot of the things that we're doing with Dreamit, actually. Yeah.
So as someone who may not know much about the fish technology, and can you describe?
Yeah.
Just I'm looking actually at the market.
Yeah. So
who does the testing? Where?
CLIA labs.
Okay.
On the downstream, the clinical reference laboratories, like I said, Quest, BioReference, and LabCorp. Those are the high volume ones. But the Medicare market in 2012 was 225 million. Now it's about 700 million. I think it's growing at 12% year after year. But you have to keep in mind that multiplex assays are more important than single probe assays because they're billing like 4 times for each thing. Medicare realized this in December 2015, and they changed the CPT codes. We're at a supreme advantage because we can put 4 markers into 1 vial and send it pre-diluted to the lab. No mixing necessary. You just take it out of the vial and run the test. This is how we save on production and manufacturing costs. This is how you increase the efficiency of analyzing the test. You don't spend about 20-30 minutes on a slide anymore because all markers are in one focal plane view under the microscope, and this is what the pathologist wants to see. There's other clinical advantages like tracking genetic heterogeneity in clonal cell populations, but that's more towards our long-term efforts of targeted therapies and companion diagnostics. Yes.
How are you going to scale to 152 labs?
Yeah, so that's the process that we're in right now. The reason we're RUO is because we don't have a GMP compliant facility at the moment, but we're looking at the facility that's right across the street from Merck in Kenilworth. There's a life sciences building there, and that's part of the reason why we're in our capital fundraising efforts right now. It's why we became publicly visible about 2 months ago. Yeah, we have IP as well. Mm-hmm.
So when will you have a commercial product?
Maybe in about 3 to 4 months. Yeah.
With FDA?
No. Okay. So Class 1 registered reagents with the FDA, maybe about 4 to 8 months. Yes.
That's just Class 1. So that's your QMS.
Yes. So if we want to do
you
like
need to go to Class 2 for sure. I can't see it.
For some clinical labs you don't, but if you want to do it with Quest and people like that, yes, it's likely to get 510K or some sort of PMA approval.
And do you have a timeline on that?
It's more than 1 year.
Yes.
It's definitely more than 1 year.
But you haven't planned that yet, no?
For prostate cancer we are. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but only for prostate cancer. Yes.
Please welcome Wealth Financial to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Alex Zoff, CTO and co-founder of Wealth. Medication non-adherence is one of the biggest problems facing the U.S. health industry today, leading to over $290 billion per year of preventable healthcare spend. It's a huge problem, and it's in dire need of a solution. And new research in the field of health incentives and behavioral economics has demonstrated strong returns in this area, being able to increase adherence and ultimately improve outcomes in chronic disease patients. So Wealth takes this research, and we package it into a commercializable format. And in this format, we can do the same thing, improve that adherence and improve outcomes for our customers who are health insurance payers or provider systems that are now taking a risk on their patients. We've seen strong early results in this field. So we did a first pilot with Cigna and showed that we could improve medication adherence by 50% in type 2 diabetics. And so our next steps are to take this and to scale it into larger studies with clinical partners. So we're talking to an endocrinologist at Tulane and a cardiologist at Robert Wood Johnson. And we would love to partner with Merck to financially support the success of these new studies. And so why should you care? If we can increase medication adherence, Merck sells more pills. So what we're really looking at here is how can we take the top 3 drug classes that you have in type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, and HIV, and help to push that adherence. Thank you.
Can you speak a bit more about the financial incentives? So the one question I have is probably the most cited academic literature behind this is a study called Am I Free, which they did out of Brigham and Women's Hospital, where the researcher partnered with Aetna to completely eliminate the copay for the patient, so effectively the drug was free. And they showed that the uptake and adherence was only 5.6%. And I'm wondering, how can you get to 50% with Cigna when the financial incentive was already there, and what you're doing that's different?
Absolutely, great question. So actually one of our advisors is Dr. Mark Fendrick, and so he's one of the founding fathers of sort of this benefits design. And he loves us because of that same reason. There's only so much you can do by reducing copays. You have to give some kind of positive incentive to patients to provide that extra motivation to get them to adhere.
So with the Cigna pilot, what was the outcome of the improved adherence?
Yeah, so it was a sort of short pilot just to demonstrate that the adherence comes and can sustain over time. Yeah. We've essentially looked at this from an actuarial perspective. If you can get evidence that you have adherence, there's lots of clinical studies that can show how much adherence will generate how much outcome in terms of 1, 2, 3-year cost. So in our case, in this study, we weren't looking at measuring the actual outcomes, just proving the adherence, but we have models that back up that long-term outcome.
So when you say adherence, is it first fill, is it refill? What's the time window? Because first fill to refill is about 14 days, and then if you look at persistent non-adherence, it's after 30 days. So the window that you looked at for the Cigna study?
Yeah, so the Cigna study was just over the course of 2 weeks to begin with, and then sustaining over 3 months. So the more than 50% adherence was in those first 2 weeks, and then we still have kind of results coming from those following 3 months, but it's seen very good continuation.
Can I sneak in one question?
Yes.
Sorry, it's loss aversion, and how does it work?
Yeah. So we've evaluated a few different methodologies. One is just providing incentives and saying, if you take pills, you get this money. But we're leveraging loss aversion, which is a more powerful psychological tool. So we're saying, here, you started this regimen, you have $100 in the bank for 6 months or for 3 months. And every time that you don't take your pills or do the things that you're supposed to do, you'll lose some of that money. And patients are much more motivated. There's been new research that just came out recently that showed, again, a 50% improvement in adherence versus just giving money. So making it seem like it's been given and then taking it away is more powerful.
That's interesting. Can you talk a little bit about who pays for this, especially if you want the payers to compensate or to pay for it? So I'm assuming the evidence bar is going to be quite high. Not sure that your pilot is going to do it. So what are your plans in terms of publishing the right data to get this paid for?
Yeah. So the great thing is we're focusing on these chronic disease patients that may have things like post-MI discharge or congestive heart failure, things where you can show returns both in outcomes and adherence in that first 3 to 6 months, maybe even less, maybe 30 days. So if we can generate strong data that shows those outcomes in those first few months, it's an easy win, and then the longer-term outcomes are even better. And that's paid by the payers and also by the risk-bearing providers. All right, thank you very much.
Next up, Adicade.
Hi, my name is Sam Franz, and I am the founder of Adicade. We are an addiction wellness platform for insurers and employers. So I'm a technologist, and I am also a recovering addict. I thought of this idea because I initially had a lot of trouble getting to a support group. The current model 7 years ago when I first got into recovery, you had to go online to the country, the state, the city, and then maybe there was an out-of-date PDF. So I built an aggregate for over 20 different kinds of support groups all around the country. We had an overwhelmingly positive response, and our users were asking us, when can we connect with people online? How can I track my progress? How can I share with others my milestones? And I realized, well, there's a huge unmet need here for a comprehensive platform that helps people of all different kinds of substance and process disorders connect, feel out their triggers, how to manage relapses, and how to effectively prevent them. So now we are a top 3 addiction app in the iTunes App Store. We have over 30,000 downloads just from a soft beta alone and a 23% retention rate. And what we're doing here now is developing interactive curriculums with a team of behavioral health experts to understand what works best for alcohol, gambling, porn, meth, opiates, because while addiction affects these vices in a similar manner, we want to make sure that people have the right accountability and support in a catered group coaching platform. We're working with insurers and employers to integrate this into pre-existing systems. And what we're interested about you guys is there's a funny study, November 14th, 2015, headline Bloomberg, Merck study shows that Hep C drug cures addicts. What does that make you think? Oh, wow, Merck cures addicts? No, it cures hepatitis C, but doesn't that mean, oh, maybe you guys do want to cure addiction? You can't cure addiction. It's a chronic disease. You can treat it. You treat it really effectively. But how do we do that? So we have in our curriculum these prompts and goals, and we have a lot of prose and audio recordings. So we are thinking, how could we leverage that and do sentiment analysis and maybe have predictive analytics to understand better when someone's going to relapse and address that before it becomes a bigger problem. And it's ended up costing the government $700 billion annually. The recovery industry is $35 billion, and overdose fatalities are going up 175% in the past 10 years. So we have an innovative solution, and we're making it better, and I think if we do something together, we could make it better faster. So cheers also to London. Thanks.
So I'll start with a quick question. Kudos to the high number. I think it's 30,000 downloads.
Yeah.
It'd be, so it's interesting to also hear how many of them are actually using. What's the uptake of the app? Are they active and so forth? And also, what's your business model? Are you looking to sell ads on this? Are you charging them just for the app? How does it work over time? And then finally, if you can speak very briefly about the addict, also their how do you engage in this group? Because again, there's a lot of, there's a very heterogeneous group. So what's the right way to engage?
So I'll just walk you through it quickly. So when I go to the app, comfortably greeted, I say what my vices are, a bit of the background info, time in recovery. And then every day we have tasks that they complete with, they check in with their urge to use and their usage patterns. And then once they do check in, the community is alerted if someone has a high urge to use or if they relapsed. And then they can immediately get the support they need, rather than the current protocol in the 12-step model is, oh, let's get these phone numbers from Harry, Jerry, Mary, and then call them, and then you say, hey, I have a problem, and then they're like, all right, well, I'm at work, bye. And so that's not really effective. And aside from that, you can also just share any content about your day with the whole community, along with connecting with other people in the in-person support groups, which you might think, well, how are we combining this more traditional method with our current approach? And we think of it as not just a reinvention, but also a augmentation of the 12-step model. Your other question was about how we make money. So no, ads, no way. A lot of, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so I want to say we're B to B to C and we're B to C, but okay, while we're at Dreamit, we realized that insurers and employee assistance programs are really excited about this, and I had no idea. And so, we're talking to independents and a few others about how we can integrate and be specific to help their members with addiction, not just general mental health disorders. But we're also thinking of introducing it into the general market, so it's not just barred if you're only covered by that insurer. But I'd love to tell you more. And you have a question.
I really like the idea of the predictive. So you need to think a little bit about that. If you're getting that many people coming on and using the app, you probably have data that can start to sort of draw correlations to that.
Yeah.
That would be really worthwhile.
Yeah, but we need to know what exactly what to do with that. But thanks. All right, thank you.
Please welcome NeoFluidics.
Hi, I'm Deepak, and I'm the Chief Product Engineer of NeoFluidics. So what is NeoFluidics? So NeoFluidics, what we do is we are a life science research company which produces consumable tools for drug screening, and we believe we are the next generation of these tools. So what do we do different? We use our platform, patent-pending microfluidic technology, to make drug screening cheaper, faster, and better. So what do I mean by cheaper? So we use microfluidic tools. So we are in the realm of micrometers. So we use very, very low volumes, which is nanoliters. So you save reagents, so cheaper. So why is it faster? So our platform microfluidic technology allows you to manipulate these really small volumes very, very quickly with features such as the single-step serial dilution. So it makes it quicker for your researchers. And why does it make it better? Well, we offer better science because our platform technology allows you to reduce pipetting errors, so you don't have errors during your research. Plus, we offer more realistic models such as continuous and intermittent in vitro screening. So in a nutshell, we are a consumable microfluidics company which offers the next generation of screening for high throughput screening as well as single cell capture and 3D cell culture. Thank you.
Can you walk me through what this market looks like? Is it Milliman? Like, who are you guys going up against that traditionally own this marketplace right now for drug screening?
Right. So if you see the traditional high throughput drug screening, it's mostly the robotics companies like Hamilton or even the ecosystems which pipette nanoliter volumes. So it's a $15 billion industry, and those are our main competitors, what we're going against.
Do you have any customers?
We have 17 as of today, and we started sales 3 months back, and we are a year and a half old.
At Harvard, we built a lab like this that would provide this at very low cost to investigators across the hospitals there. How do you compete with that sort of?
Right. What is different is, and I presume you're talking about Dr. Whiteside's.
Yep.
Yes. So what is different is that they use a benchtop system, right? What our technology offers is that it's compatible with most robotic liquid handling systems, right? So it's a much simpler to use platform. So we've actually put our technology in a well plate format. So we call it the Neo plate. So it's basically a well plate, but it's a smart well plate. So you can take it to a normal laboratory and you can just put it under your pipetting system and you can just directly use it. So it decreases adoption to resistance, plus it's much easier to use, and it's incorporated in most platforms which are already available.
I think that's a great answer because to use the lab, the friction is still high in terms of knowing about it and doing that. So that's great. Thank you.
Just a quick question. So a Merck or a Pfizer, top 3 or 5 pharma, roughly what's their cost per year in reagent use, and how much do you cut that cost in dollars?
Well, if you look at it in reagent use, I would easily say it's upwards of $100 million in just reagents use in high throughput screening. And if you use our technology, we could easily reduce it by 100 times.
So 100 million down to
$1 million. Yeah.
$1 million.
Yes.
So is this again back to the market? Is this really about big pharma, or is which companies actually are going to be your targets, and how, because it's a limited market potentially. You have to basically have a high market share to right.
So I think it's a big pharma because if you take a company like Merck or even Pfizer, they run about 16 high throughput screening trials every year. So you're talking about at least 16 times $100 million. So that's $1.6 billion every year per company. Plus, a lot of these academic institutions now also are running high throughput screenings trials. So it is a big market. If you really see.
Who are the customers now?
We have Pfizer, we have Genentech, we have GSK, and we have MIT Cancer Research Institute, and some of the customers. Thank you.
You could have just said everyone but Merck.
Yes. Any more questions?
Do you have an ask? Do you want something?
Oh yeah, it would be great if you can introduce that. If you could actually use our product, I mean, yeah.
And who's the person at Merck you speak to?
Group leaders and scientists who actually are in the lab, or lab rats like us, as we say. So.
Where are you based from?
San Diego, California.
Please welcome Circle Link Health.
Thanks for having us. I'm Rafael Anstey from Circle Link Health. What we do is let primary care doctors get a new up to $10 billion reimbursement from Medicare for their multi-chronic care patients. And specifically we do that because we're taking better care of them between office visits with our distributed care coaches. Now, what's specifically happening here is Medicare has done a number of studies starting as far back as 2000, 2002, some of them 10-year studies. They found if you can extend that primary care relationship outside the office, you can improve outcomes, reduce hospital admissions, and also increase health for the patient. So you're now going to proactive care instead of reactive care. So they now have a payment. It's $42 per patient per month on average. It's really hard to do. You have to do 20 minutes of non-face-to-face care outside the office. A primary care doctor's workflow does not allow for that. They're super stressed for time. They don't have the resources. Their staff doesn't either. We also have to do a bunch of technological things, like a common care plan is shared across the whole care team. What if the care team has different EHR systems? You can't do it. So what's resulting is doctors cannot do this on their own. That's where we step in. So basically, we charge about $26 per patient per month. We give the payment terms in such a way that the doctor can get paid by Medicare first. There's no upfront cost. So you're talking about upwards of $100,000 of extra revenue per doctor per year. And that's the value we bring. In terms of working with Merck, we'd love to have another solution you can bring to your provider staff. We have a 400 Salesforce outsource rep network that came to us. We spent zero on marketing. They came to our website for demos. They chose to sell us over other people. And we'd love to connect with that network and get in front of your providers, add value to your providers. That's extra budget they can spend on other things and work with you as well. Additionally, on the data side, we are engaging these patients through the phone 1 to 5 times a month. We're collecting things like adherence data, vitals, etc., that you otherwise don't have. We're illuminating those dark spots between visits. So we have all this data. We'd love to know, what kind of data you're looking at, how we can work with you in terms of the value you can extract from that data. So those are 2 things, basically, distribution and data.
Are you trying to fit yourself into any of the innovative Center for Medicare, Medicaid Innovation care models, like the Patient Center Medical Home? They just announced a new one where I forgot what the range per patient was. It was like $15 to $28 per patient. Is that part of your guys' business model right now? To ACOs as an example, like what are you guys thinking about in terms of the payment reform landscape?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, things are moving towards pay for outcome, and this reimbursement is separate from the things you mentioned. So you can't do a patient-centered medical home and get this payment as well, because basically all the requirements are covered in the PCHM. In terms of the new CPC Plus, which is the new thing that just came out, we are contacting CMS a lot. They're requiring vendors to help the primary care doctors. So a lot of the same services we already have now also apply to these value-based payments as we go forward. We also are showing, through our own experience and encounters, we're preventing more acute care aspects simply by connecting the primary care doctor in real time to the patient when they're at home.
So this is CPT code 9499.
99490, yeah.
Right. So one of the issues there with the uptake has been that one of the requirements is that the provider needs to be able to do this for 24 hours, around the clock.
Yes.
And many of them are not open after hours, so therefore they're not doing it.
Right.
How can your program help them sort of cover for those after hours so they can qualify for the payments?
Yeah, so basically we have a 24-hour hotline, and the patients can call in at any time. They're triaged. If they escalate, we can escalate to a clinician. So that's how you basically cover it. And we offer this whole turnkey solution, not just the 24/7, but also the regular 20 minutes of care a month, checking with the patients, normalizing the EHR data, so a care plan that's shareable across the whole care team. So all those things in one.
We have someone from the audience. Sure.
Sorry, just a quick question.
Sure.
This is all on a telephone, the support?
This is all through regular, we call the patients, they're Medicare multi-chronic patients, so we actually know less than 18% of them, I believe, from a Pew Research poll are comfortable with mobile apps, so we can't use mobile apps. Great question.
Oh,
that's really key to our process design.
How many employees do you have?
So we have a clinical care team is about We're getting close to 7. Each of them can support 300 patients. Our core tech, product, business, and advisor team is about, including the advisors, it's about 11.
And where are you? Is that Connecticut?
It's Connecticut, correct. And Philadelphia for the last 2 weeks.
Quickly, what would be the qualifications of your staff?
The care coaches, so the clinical staff ranges from experts in the fields of academics such as at Tulane. We worked with Johns Hopkins as well to formulate some of these chronic care programs. The care coaches range from nurses to MAs. They need to be supervised by a practitioner. Depends on the state.
One last question. Have you
Sure.
considered actually approaching pharmaceutical companies from a clinical trials perspective? Because we also would like to illuminate the darkness between the visits of our patients and trials.
I'd love to discuss that further.
And just if you maybe you can look up CareSync. It's a Merck portfolio company.
I know Travis.
Please welcome Suggestic.
My father was admitted to hospital 8 weeks ago with an uncontrolled diabetes. A few hours later, he passed away. His lifestyle choices, the processed food we're eating, made him sick. Processed food and lifestyle choices are making us all sick. We don't know how to change this. It's very difficult to diet. We've all tried. We've all read books. We've all tried looking at recipes, exploring online. And changing your habits has to do a lot with understanding what is bad and knowing how to choose from a myriad of food choices. What if we could be like in the Matrix, where you could just download directly into your brain everything you have to know about what food choices I have here at the cafeteria? What is what I should buy at the grocery store tomorrow? What are those 3 options that are healthier for me and tastier for me at the local 10-minute away walk restaurant? At Suggestic, we're a group of serial entrepreneurs based out of San Francisco, Silicon Valley. We've raised over $100 million in past companies. We've sold 6 of our companies. And now we're focused on trying to bring to market with deep artificial intelligence, a backend that can continuously learn about us, and with a gorgeous app, a way to interact with the user and figure out exactly what he can do to interact with his environment.
So are you passively collecting data while the app is on?
We are doing both, yes. We are passively collecting. We know where he's going, so we can tell him these are the groceries when he walks into the store. We know how much he walked. We know if he has, we are connected to HealthKit. We know his heart rate. We know his, and actually after we suggest, we get his feedback by saying, did you eat was it good? And you say, yes, no, I ate something else. And we have 500,000 menus and over 1 million recipes.
So you're plugging into basically like OpenTable and food APIs and
yes,
you're
yes.
Yeah, I mean, my question here is that the shelf life for almost all consumer health apps is around 2 weeks. What is the engagement plan here? It looks very nice from a UI perspective, but how do you continue to, the problem with chronic conditions is that you have to get a longitudinal understanding of patient behavior, and I'm wondering if most people use an app for 2 weeks, how are you going to be collectively gathering intelligence about a patient's condition, their environmental, the behavioral factors that might contribute to type 2 diabetes, as an example?
Actually, we kick it off with existing CDC 88 diets. You can integrate your own diets like paleo, Mediterranean, and what it does, it filters off for you the information of restaurant menus and etc. So it's making it as simple as possible to do that dietary change and that lifestyle change. So basically, we think that by making it very simple, and you don't have to log in like and MyFitnessPal a million things, and so it's taken the effort out of complying with what you want to do and making it as tasty as possible. So the one thing that we're learning over time is, one, what you like the most, and so the more you use it, the better it gets. And the other thing we're learning is which of those activity sequences are actually generating the best outcomes, and people like you, and people for you, and for people like you. So we're.
And how many people have downloaded the app so far?
No, we're starting a beta in Philadelphia in 3 weeks.
Could you talk just a little bit about kind of the chat bot interface and the UI and the deep learning? How does the user interact with it?
It's a conversational application, so you get you see it's like using Waze or SMS. And you chat with the information. It's a chatbot basically, and you get little cards with options that you can click on. So it's
and the business model. Where do you make money?
There's two sides to this. One is we sponsor some of those diets by companies such as yours, or even white labeled application. And on the other side, you can download, like as if in an app store, diets that you can overimpose or mix with the ones that are free or sponsored. Please.
Please welcome MedAware.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gidi Stein. My background, I'm practicing physician, and I teach medicine in Tel Aviv University. In the last few years, co-founder and CEO of MedAware. What we do basically aggregates millions of electronic medical records and create mathematical models which takes this data and extract from it how physicians treat their patients in different clinical scenarios. Basically, deeply understanding how they perform. And then we're able to take this knowledge and mirror it back to the physicians at the point of care to make them help them make better decisions. The first application of this technology, basically our ability to identify prescriptions who are a statistical outlier to the normal behavior patterns of like physicians in like scenarios as potential errors. We're able to flag those alerts, show to the physicians at the point of care and in real time. We have tested this theory on almost 2 million patients with 100 million prescriptions and show that we're able to actually save lives and reduce costs in several ways. Now, in order for us to be able to do so, we need to understand deeply the exact scenario in which each prescription is prescribed to the patient, the exact clinical setting. And we think this is of great interest to the pharmaceutical companies because we're able to really track and understand how they perform, how their medications are given, to what kind of populations, and at what times. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, and I agree that it's very interesting for partnership ideas with pharmaceutical companies. A couple of questions, brief questions. One is there are other tools that are looking at preventing medication errors, and even so. One of the questions is what's different about yours. The second is you mentioned you have a lot of data, patient data, but do you actually have proof in varied settings, institutions, and published data that can actually at this point serve to sell this?
Regarding this first question, the currently available tools are usually rule-based systems, drug interaction databases, allergy checkers. They have two main flaws. One, they catch only a small fraction of the actual errors, only what they were predefined to find. And the second is that according to the medical literature, these systems are so inaccurate that more than 90% of the alerts that they provide are false alarms, driving into alert fatigue in which the physicians disregard the alert altogether. We are purely a statistical engine. We look at statistical outliers, very like credit card fraud detection. We're very accurate, very on the mark. We've made several clinical studies in Israel, two hospitals, one large HMO, 400,000 lives, identifying life-threatening prescription errors that were not identified by the current solutions in more than 1% of primary care and 2% of hospitalized patients, associated with early mortality, longer hospital lengths of stay, and recurrent admission. We're now in the final stages of a large retrospective pilot at the Brigham and Women's Hospital with a group of David Bates, analyzing 800,000 lives. Very, very promising results will be out soon, I hope. we'll all be able to enjoy it.
So look, I have so many questions. Let me start with this one.
We have 5 seconds.
How's your HIPAA compliance?
So that's what's nice about our system. It's installed inside the firewall of the medical institutions, hooked into the EMR, so there's no HIPAA there. But the knowledge that we extract is purely statistical data that it can be then taken out of the premise of the hospital and put on the cloud. And knowledge could be a sentence that says, birth control pills are prescribed usually to females aged 12 to 55 who are not in pregnant status. This is obviously trivial, but this is the result of our algorithms analyzing millions of electronic medical records. And this kind of knowledge is non-personal, so it can be placed anywhere and can be taken from one location to another to add security and a safety net to physicians worldwide.
So you talked about point of care and you talked about real time, so that means point of prescription. How do you get there? How do you get to the point of care?
So our system is integrated inside the medical institution, hooked to the EMR. We're integrated with the EMR and know how to perform a dialogue, a data dialogue, which is event-driven with the electronic medical records provider in that institution. So when a physician enters a new prescription into the system, the EMR sends that prescription as an event to our system. We analyze it, return in real time an alert, and display it according to the workflow of the physician inside the EMR.
So when will you have your Class 1 registration?
If I knew what is a Class 1 registration, I could answer that.
Well, you can't be sending messages like that to the point of prescription without, especially because you're doing a predictive, right?
No.
You've taken a whole lot of medical records and you said this is the best approach to a patient. That's what you said earlier, right?
No. What I said is we're not giving any judgment, we're not giving any advice. We're just saying, listen, 99% of physicians in similar scenarios would have done differently. You're prescribing a Viagra to a 2-year-old male child. Are you sure you want to do that? That's it.
No, you'll need regulatory. You will definitely need Class 1.
Okay. Any other questions?
I was fascinated by this report you mail back. So it comes like a Prascini score in the mail, and they open it and they do something with it, or it's an email. You said you look at physician performance and then you report it back to the providers, right? What's that like? And did they change their prescription behavior or anything?
So it's very interesting to see how, when this system is installed live, changed the way that physicians actually work. And I'll be happy to dig into it and explain it to it, but it sounds like we don't have enough time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Last but not least, please welcome Admetsis.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm Jeff Valk, co-founder and CEO of Admetsis, where we've created the first artificial pancreas system for hospital care. So cardiometabolic disease has completely transformed the demographics of hospital care. At this point, over 40% of all patients admitted are at glucose control risk. In critical care, that number doubles. It's over 80%. This is medically high impact. So by controlling glucose levels, studies have shown a 1/3 overall decrease in mortality and a host of reductions in comorbidities, including the need for dialysis, transfusion, incidence of hospital-acquired secondary infections. So the problem is fundamentally that we're doing the same thing in hospital today that we were 25 years ago. We're asking nurses to run errands. Go prick a finger, use a glucometer, calculate a dosage by hand, maybe use a software program if you're lucky, and then turn a pump up and down. Fundamentally, this doesn't scale to the epidemic. So what we've created is basically a metabolic autopilot. The system hooks to a patient's peripheral IV line, uses an electrochemical biosensor to analyze glucose, among other analytes, creates an adaptive computational model of that patient's metabolism in real time, and then infuses 2 medications, insulin to lower glucose levels, but also dextrose to raise and support them. So we create an active defense against hypoglycemia, and we can clamp that patient's blood sugar euglycemically the way a healthy human body would. So we're fundamentally an information-driven technology, which means that we have real-time metabolic data flowing off of the point of care at 3 hertz. So if that's interesting from the standpoint of drug discovery, the efficacy of the information that efficacy of the products that you guys are delivering in the clinical environment, I would love to unpack that with you guys offline. But take any questions you have for the meanwhile.
So, number of, I mean, this is an exciting area. A lot of development in this area by many companies and that are studying different types of artificial pancreases at this point. So, one is obviously what makes you special, what market you're targeting, and what market share you expect, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, because there is a sort of a hard line between the folks who are doing outpatient and the folks who are doing inpatient. And by the folks that are doing inpatient, I mean us, because no one else is. So 43% of all diabetic care expenditures are incurred in hospital, and everyone else is looking at the 57%. So physiologically, those folks are sensing an interstitial fluid or maybe lacrimal fluid. If you believe that Google's actually going to bring a product to market, good luck. They're infusing transdermally, which means you've got completely different PK and PD than what you're doing if you're delivering intravenously, which we are, and you don't have a counterbalance. So those folks are looking at how you would counterbalance this. There are people exploring glucagon, but a stable liquid glucagon is still a research project. No one actually has one on the market today. We circumvent all of this because we have bloodstream access. So we can measure glucose concentration directly in the blood. We can infuse directly into the bloodstream, both insulin and dextrose. I have dextrose. I have blood. I can raise blood glucose levels. It's just that easy.
Which hospitals are you in now?
Yeah, so we've got clinical trials that are scheduled to begin later this year at a number of different institutions. University of Michigan is one of them. We're working with some of your colleagues out of Harvard Medical School. Those trials we've talked about doing them up in Boston at the BI, but they might actually be moved to Cedars as well. We have a couple of clinical trial partners on the other side of the pond, so two different hospitals, one in Aalborg and one in Kolding in Denmark. And there are a few others that we've got conversations with, so there's probably another 5 or 6, and we're trying to down select. We'll probably bring 4 trial sites online for the pivotal.
So did you mention, or did I read this somewhere, that you're going to rely on predictive analytics to...
Definitely didn't read that anywhere.
No? Because I thought I saw somewhere that this solution relies on, not reacting to a high glucose, but predicting where... I mean, I don't know, maybe...
So, I mean, fundamentally, when you're trying to treat a patient in that regard, you are doing some level of prediction inherently, but we're not an MPC algorithm. I mean, if you read the literature, everybody in that particular space is going, well, all we need is more predictive analytics, which is a nice way of saying I could treat the patient better if I could see into the future. I could too, but that's not the way that we fundamentally address the algorithmic modeling of the patient's metabolism. And I should note that this is all individualistic. So we're not doing statistical aggregation across a host of different patients. We're adapting to an individual patient's demonstrated metabolic response in real time, which is incredibly important for a variable hospital patient population.
Okay. Another question is, what would be the cost of the device, and what kind of market are you targeting? I mean, these patients that are... Who's the patient?
Yeah, sure.
Who's the customer?
All right, so I'll do this one if you can hold off on the music for a couple of seconds. So it's razor blade model. We're staying off the CapEx budget. We want to be on the supply budget because that better aligns with the hospital's financial realities. We want a dependable per patient day cost of glucose control for the hospital. From the standpoint of who the population that we're serving would be, most acute areas of care first, because that's the highest value and that's where the medical literature is. So we don't want to sell into an education effort. Rather, we want to meet the market where it is. And right now, the medical literature is really strongest in and around cardiothoracic surgery, but anywhere tissue healing is really important. The more healing at the tissue level matters, the more glucose control matters. So that's also neurosurgery and trauma. It's orthopedic surgeries. But every time I say this at a conference or something similar, I get another group saying, don't forget about us. It's the step-down nurses, or it's somebody in another area of surgical care, what have you, medical ICU, you name it. Ultimately, does this end up on the floor of the hospital? I think maybe, but from a financial and from a medical standpoint, I think you have to start in acute care. Cue the music. Thank you, guys.
Steve? Yeah, sure. Thank you. So that's 14 companies. The 15th couldn't make it today, so we're sorry about that. Look, we really appreciate everybody's time today. These guys just, have just been pounding through this. We've been working with them for all of 3 weeks. By the way, it's like Harvard, right? These are the best of the best coming into us, so they're just a pleasure to work with. We invite you. I don't want to take much time. I want you to network with them. If you find interesting things, if you have ideas of how they could help Merck, if you're like, well, we don't do this in orthopedics, but I know the head of orthopedic surgery at this hospital, they'd love your intros. We really appreciate it. One of the things we also tried to do here for Merck was, we know the innovation team at Merck has been rolling things out in Europe or on the continent, and well, I guess more in the UK, and kind of showing you what we do in innovation, and it's outside innovation, but showing you how, the companies we work with. We hope that brings interesting opportunities to Merck and from Merck, and look forward to ways we can work together. We really appreciate your time. I just love you guys to network, and I think we're here till what time? Eastern time? 30 minutes. Till noon. Oh, okay. So we have plenty of time to network then. Thanks, Sean. And thank you for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
So from my perspective, once again, thank you. So part of our objective here at Merck was to bring the venture capital mindset within to our organization. So you all did a fantastic job of doing that. I think we can learn a lot just from being able to speak succinctly in 90 seconds. It's a challenge, but it's also something that our organization can learn from. In terms of networking and helping each other out, I have many notes, so I'll track some of you down. So thank you for your presentations. I know my colleagues here as well may have some opportunities for networking for all of you. And I do know that on the line we have individuals all around the globe who have been tuned in, and particularly some of your fellow colleagues at MSD UK and within our own incubator at Velocity Health. So if there's opportunity for sharing of best practices or efforts, I'm sure they'll be in touch as well. So I would ask anyone on the webcast and or here in the room, if you have follow-up questions, you can follow up directly with Steve or Mike Rinkunis from Dreamit. You can follow up directly with myself at the emails on the board. And if you did, by chance, write down emails or contacts from any of the presenters, you can reach out directly.
Okay, cool. And then two other things. We're going to, Kim had said wanted to get a picture with the Merck people and all the Dreamit people. I was very remiss from the beginning this morning. Phil, where are you? He's somewhere. Phil Christian is here. He's Managing Director of Health at Dreamit. So if you think I know what I'm talking about, he actually does. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he's an MD, and he's an ER doc. Mo Rinkunis and Mike Rinkunis. Mike, I don't know where you are. I see Mo sitting in the back. Thank you. I mean, there's a whole group of people at Dreamit that work closely with you, Sean, and a lot of people, and we greatly appreciate your help, and I was very remiss for not introducing them earlier. Have done a tremendous effort, not only today, but for the last, actually, 3 weeks from Destination Dreamit. These teams started with a 3-day immersive offsite experience, and then 2 weeks of immersions this way. So thank you. They did a great job. And Kim, you wanted to bring everybody up for a picture? Yep, I'm sorry.
And that was 15 pitches for these guys in 10 days?
No, they did 7 immersions in 10 days with 15 companies.
So thank you, and a big thank you as well to our judges, Nima,
Yes,
Rob, Paul, Jacob, pleasure. Everyone on the line, I think we will sign off. I will ask everyone here to stay for networking and coffee and pictures.
Okay.
Thank you.
you.